Welcome to the Spy Collection. This is Anastasios, covering two very recently publicly disclosed documents from US spy agencies. We had other plans for this week's episode, but we received several questions about those documents which, based on mainstream media reporting, are genuine leaked documents from the US intelligence community. Thus, we'll go through them in detail, focusing on the educational aspect, to help us understand how leading spy agencies operate in today's world. This story started on October 18th, when the Middle East Spectator stated in Telegram that an informed source within the US intelligence community has shared with us an extremely sensitive, top-secret US intelligence document from the NGIA dated October 15-16, detailing Israeli preparations for an extensive strike inside Iran. According to the report, the US has observed the Israeli Air Force handling ALBMs, air-launched ballistic missiles, like Golden Horizon, at least 16, and Rocs, at least 40, at Hatzerim Air Base since October 8th. If all of these are used, it would be a major attack. From October 15th to October 16th, the Israeli Air Force also handled several ASMs, air-to-surface missiles, at Ramat David and Ramon Air Bases, indicating an imminent attack. Additionally, the Israeli Air Force carried out an LFE exercise on October 15th to practice air-to-air refueling and combat search and rescue operations with a large number of aircraft, including at least 3 KC-707 tankers, 1 G-550 Gulfstream AWACS aircraft, and possibly fighter jets. This classified report originates from the National Geospatial Intelligence Agency, part of the US Department of Defense. Note that after those receiving a lot of attention, to the level that even US and Israeli military operations were impacted by it, Middle East Spectator stated that Middle East Spectator is an open-source news aggregator. We are independent journalists and we are not tied to any government entity or organization. On Friday morning, at approximately 1:15 a.m. Tehran time, one of our acquaintances received, through an anonymous source on Telegram who refused to identify himself, two highly classified US intelligence documents regarding preparations by the Zionist regime for an attack on the Islamic Republic of Iran. We have no connection to the original leaker. We are not aware of his identity. We also have no knowledge of the alleged authenticity of the documents. Furthermore, we assume that the documents had been floating around elsewhere on Telegram, making them a part of the public domain. We reject attempts by various Zionist and American media outlets to intimidate the reporters of Middle East Spectator, who are exercising their full and inalienable right of press freedom. Free Palestine. But regardless of how or why those documents were leaked online, they are definitely worth studying as a modern intelligence product. So without further ado, here is the first document. From its classification markings, we see that it was the highest classification and included information derived from spy satellites, as well as foreign government information that they have obtained from Israel. It's titled, Air Force continues preparations for strike on Iran and conducts a second large force employment exercise, 15th and 16th of October 2024. Then we have some details, which is something that we very rarely get to see in the public. We have a particular target and the ID of the collected imagery, which was from October 16, 2024 at 0655 Zulu time. It was for the Israeli Hatzerim Air Base, and with the provided coordinates we can verify that too. As we read, it was a supplemental intelligence report, or SUPI report, produced by NIMAST. It's likely that NIMAST uses the name that NGA had until 2003, the National Imagery and Mapping Agency, and ST could be from St. Louis, since the agency has several facilities there. Nevertheless, if you do know exactly what CX NIMAST is, please let us know in the comments below. Let's read the report. The Israeli Air Force, IAF, continued air-launched ballistic missile ALBM handling, covered UAV operations, and conducted a second large force employment LFE exercise from 15th to 16th of October 2024, according to imagery analysis. The IAF has handled at least 16 Golden Horizon ALBMs and at least 40 ISO2 ROX ALBMs since October 8th, according to imagery analysis. This isn't only giving some factual data on what is happening in Israel these days, but also that there are covert UAV operations taking place, which is within the scope of our content, and more on that later in this document. Continuing with a paragraph that is also based on information US got from Israel, we read, "The IAF continued ALBM handling at Hatzerim Airfield on October 15, 2024. The IAF placed concealment screens over 6 F-15I Hardened Aircraft Shelter HAS entrances on an alert apron on October 16th, which indicated ALBM handling occurred in the HAS area. We cannot differentiate if this activity is related to ISO2 ROX or Golden Horizon ALBMs. However, 3 possible Golden Horizon ALBM-associated dollies arrived in a separate HAS adjacent to the F-15 Alert HAS complex. We did not observe increased personnel at the ALBM handling area at Hatzerim Airfield on October 16th. This section was also quite revealing both for the IMINT analysts and the IAF, since it reveals some of the tactics, techniques and procedures used, and how those were interpreted by the IMINT analyst that wrote this report. For an average person, those concealment screens or the dollies could be easily ignored even if they had access to that imagery. But for SME Intel analysts, those give a lot more context, as you can read. Notice that this next section wasn't classified as top secret, but secret. It says, "The IAF likely handled air-to-surface missiles ASM at Ramat David Airfield and Ramon Airfield from 15th through 16th October. The IAF handled one probable unidentified ASM at Ramat David Airfield on October 15th. The unidentified ASM was in front of hardened aircraft bunker typically associated with precision-guided munitions generation. At Ramon Airfield, one munitions cart, probably outfitted with missile handling equipment, arrived within the ALBM area on October 16th, indicating ALBM handling likely occurred." Again, very insightful analytic work here. And the next section used NGA spy satellites and was only to be shared with US and UK officials as top secret. It says, "The IAF continued to conduct covert UAV flight activity at Ramon Airfield from 15th through 16th of October. The IAF opened the RA-01 operations hangar screen and the gate to the RA-01 operations area, indicating an RA-01 airframe was transiting to or from the operations area at 17:31 Zulu, October 15th. On October 16th, NGA observed personnel and ground equipment arrive within the RA-01 operations area, indicating pre- or post-flight activity occurred. This is the first publicly known reference that talks about the Israeli RA-01 ISR platform. This means that IAF is conducting spy missions with a drone that is not even publicly known. Definitely something that aviation enthusiasts would like to explore further, especially now that this document reveals where it was based at. And the report concludes with this paragraph saying that the IAF conducted an LFE exercise on October 15th, the second LFE exercise since October 13th, likely to practice air-to-air refueling and combat search and rescue operations with a large number of aircraft. The LFE exercise included at least 3 KC-707 tankers, 1 G-550 Gulfstream airborne early warning aircraft, and possibly fighter aircraft, according to SIGINT reporting. The KC-707 tankers and the G-550 Gulfstream aircraft involved in the LFE exercise is a similar package to what the IAF used to conduct long-range strikes in Yemen on September 29, 2024, according to imagery analysis. This is something that could also be verified through OSINT. Unfortunately, we didn't have the time to do it for this video, but if you did, please link your research in the comments of this video. Finally, we have the sources that were used to produce this finished Intel product. As it was mentioned in the last paragraph, each source was SIGINT, and specifically from the NSA. And as we have explained in past videos, the source ID number also tells us a lot. S means secret, and then CY is almost certainly referring to the 5i spy base located in Cyprus. Then we have the unique serial number of this product and the year 2024. Next we have the point of contact, which was the NGA's Levant Division, Southern Levant Branch Israel team. For anyone unfamiliar, NGA is a spy agency that uses the collection of other US spy agencies like the NSA and the NRO to develop geospatial intelligence products. This is why we have the NSA defined as an originating source, but the NGA as the point of contact, because the NSA did the signals intelligence collection, but the NGA was responsible to put all the puzzle pieces together from spy satellite imagery of the NRO to SIGINT from the NSA to make this report. Remember though, both NSA and NGA are under the DoD, so technically they both belong to the US military, apart from also being members of the IC. So with this first document we learned a lot. How important having true SME Intel analysts is when doing IMINT. That IAF has a secret UAV called RAO-1 conducting covert missions from the Ramon Air Base, a previously unknown intelligence agency abbreviation, as well as the crucial role that the Cyprus 5i spy base plays in the region. And with that, let's move to the next document, which we actually reconstructed so that it's easier to navigate through it. Here is the original. Pause the video if you'd like to read it, but we copied everything in our version too. It's coming from the NGA and is titled Israel, Defense Forces Continue Key Munitions Preparations and Covert UAV Activity Almost Certainly for a Strike on Iran, October 16, 2024. And it was to be shared only with US and UK spy agencies. Note the use of the term almost certainly. In the Intel analysis world, those are not just random words. To avoid confusion, many agencies have tables that explain in detail what they mean, because otherwise each reader could interpret that differently. On the left side we have the report where the first two paragraphs are similar to what we already covered. The third point though said, all Israeli mid and upper tier air defense systems remain deployed. And then, the Israeli Navy continued to disperse from Haifa, and the IAF continued to partially disperse aircraft out of Ufda airfield. Next, the IAF continued covert UAV operations on October 16th. Israel's covert UAVs enable long-range covert surveillance in Iran and throughout the region. This is giving us even more details on that secretive RAO-1 spy drone mentioned in the other document, where we see that Israel is using that to spy inside Iran and other countries in the region. Lastly, we did not observe any Jericho-2 medium-range ballistic missiles MRBM activity on October 16th. Israel likely dispersed MRBMs on October 1st, and we lack indications that the dispersal has concluded. MRBM dispersal is almost certainly defensive. We have not observed indications that Israel intends to use a nuclear weapon. This not only confirms that Israel has nuclear weapons, but also that it's using the Jericho-2 missile for them. Probably many of you noticed the footer too, apart from the FGI that we already explained. Here you see that before it was publicly leaked, it was planned for declassification review on December 31st, 2074, as well as that it was derived from CONGA SCG. This is referring to the consolidated NGA Security Classification Guide. There is an unclassified slide deck from NGA that explains the concept in detail. We'll leave a link in the description for anyone that wants to study this further. There were also some bits that we couldn't transcribe, so we included them as per the originally leaked document. Now let's move to the most interesting part of this product. In several past videos, we have mentioned the Intel analysis topic of IW, indications and warning. Those are basically a series of events that Intel analysts define and constantly monitor to get early warnings about a potentially important event that they are tasked by their supervisor to keep a close eye on. In this case, that was Israel attacking Iran. And here NGA displays their IW Intel analysis in the following structure. Select GeoInt indicators of Israeli military activity oriented to Iran. Here's the legend explaining what the different symbols mean. Since the leaked doc was in black and white, the colors is something that we chose and might not reflect the original NGA Intel product. And here is a small disclaimer saying that the indicators in this chart address Israeli preparation for attacks on Iran or the anticipation of Iranian attacks. Then NGA Intel analysts broke down the indicators to broad categories like weapons handling, air defense, ground forces, and so on, with the additional columns of the status of indicators observed and the predictive activity. We aren't going to read all of them since our focus here is the educational aspect of this Intel product, not necessarily NGA's observations for this particular event. But it's important to draw your attention to another reporting writing tip. Some of those indicators could be misinterpreted, and this is why NGA analysts added some additional context. In air defense, for instance, we have elevated missile and air defenses, but with a remark that Israeli air defenses have been on heightened readiness level since 7 October 2023 attacks. Israeli ground forces have maintained an elevated defensive posture in northern Israel, primarily to defend northern Israel against cross-border incursion from Lebanon and Syria. This answers many questions that the readers might have about the statuses. Same for special forces, where NGA's indicator was whether SF prepares for external operations, and the remark says, Israeli special forces have been active throughout the current conflict. Also earlier we mentioned that NGA is doing the analysis, but the US spy satellites are operated by the NRO. This is also written here, where the collected imagery is explicitly mentioned that is coming from the NRO, and DoD reporting potentially refers to the previous NSA product as well as other DoD spy agencies that could have produced relevant intelligence. Worth noting that in the early morning hours of Saturday, October 26, 2024, Israel indeed attacked Iran with airstrikes, focusing on military targets, primarily IRGC-related infrastructure. The exact TTPs and weapons used aren't known yet, but they appear to match what was described in this document.
We conducted targeted and precise strikes on military targets in Iran, thwarting immediate threats to the State of Israel. The Israel Defense Forces has fulfilled its mission. If the regime in Iran were to make the mistake of beginning a new round of escalation, we will be obligated to respond.
In conclusion, those were two recently leaked US intelligence community documents. Once again, we do not know who leaked them to the media, why, or how, but they are still an excellent educational tool on how modern, high-quality Intel products look like, especially for anyone that wants to study a real IW report that isn't based on decades-old incidents. Such products are a result of many hours of meticulous intelligence work, from the wording used to the actual imagery and signals intelligence collection, data processing, and analytic process such as how to select a small number of indicators that are still good enough to be used for accurate predictions, to what do you need to collect on to ensure you update those indicators accurately and timely, tasking the spy satellites to collect that, and so on. For the majority of the people, all that tradecraft seems more like magic, and they only get to just hear a politician or senior military official saying something like, "We know that this or that is going to happen." But in multiple facilities around the globe, intelligence professionals are the true heroes behind such simple statements with products like this, allowing us a small look behind the espionage curtain where nothing is as it seems.